What's going on? Continuing to try out the Facebook Live app here. Want to see how many people end up coming in here, continuing to test it against Periscope, and also kind of get set up for what will, I think, eventually be a regular daily show. Just got out here to the hotel room in LA and chilling in the hotel room. Thought I'd answer a few questions. So we'll see how many people want to come in here and hang out, do it for a few minutes. And then I'm going to flip over to Periscope and compare the responses, given that it's almost exactly the same time. So anybody can comment at any point down below. If you are new to following me on Facebook, thanks for being a follower of the Clay Travis Facebook page. And I'm going to do these fairly regularly. And once we get the new show started, this is what I think the future of media will be. So this is going to be pretty cool. So let me know what you think. Game I'm looking forward to the most this weekend, Tennessee, Alabama, of course. But the game that I think will have the most resonance on the overall national championship picture is probably Utah USC, because I think there's a good chance that Utah loses. I also think Florida State Georgia Tech is an underrated, interesting game as well. No, it's not a much to win for Butch Jones, but I do think that in the final 5 games of the season, Tennessee should be able to win all of them. So assuming Tennessee loses to Alabama here to go to 3-4, final 5 are all games that Tennessee will be substantially better than their opponent in. So I would think that they need to win those games. So whether it's Missouri, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, or Kentucky, all 5 of those are must-wins. Yeah, I think Florida will win the East. All they have to do is split the LSU game, which they lost, and the Georgia game. And if they win the cocktail party, they win the East going away, because all they have left is South Carolina and Vanderbilt, and I don't see any way that they're going to lose. Can I walk around and show the room? You sound like my kids. I will twist the thing around. Here is my hotel room. As you can see, it's not a bad place, and just me hanging out in here. I think McElwain's just that good on offense, and I think that Florida was that bad under Will Muschamp on offense. I think you can see that just with what's going on, honestly, with Driscoll. He's been fantastic at Louisiana Tech, and Muschamp couldn't find anything for him to be able to be successful in. It's not that distracting. My mind works pretty fast, so I sometimes miss questions, so it's not like I'm trying to ignore questions, but I think that's the challenge, is that a lot of times these come up so quickly. Good luck in the Alabama student section. The positive is Alabama fans probably, especially in the student section, don't even view Tennessee as a rival hardly, since it's been since they were really little kids that Tennessee actually won. Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the opposite would have been true if Tennessee had beaten Florida. I mean, you go back and look, even with everything awful that Tennessee did, if they make the field goal against Florida from 55 yards that they missed by a foot and a half, whatever it was, a small distance, then Tennessee basically has won the SEC East, even with the loss to Arkansas. And I don't think Tennessee would have lost to Arkansas if they had beaten Florida the week before. So I think you're talking, though, if you have the tie break over Florida and over Georgia, right now with Tennessee, all you're saying is, boy, all we got to do is go 5-3 and we win the East. No, I think Rick Pitino will be back. I took Western Kentucky to cover the 17, yeah. That's always dangerous. I think Tennessee will be competitive. I think Tennessee plus 16, as I wrote in my picks column, is a steal, must be. And so I think that's a good play. I don't know. I think it'll depend on who Kirby Smart gets as his offensive coordinator. Honestly, because Will Muschamp was never able to get the offense figured out. Even the year they went 11-1, they basically avoided making all sorts of big mistakes. Probably pictures from the Louisville party. I just am not that surprised by the whole Louisville situation. You use sex and alcohol to try to persuade kids to come to your school. The fact that these kids didn't go to Louisville, I think probably speaks to the fact that it goes on a lot of places. Because if this was the only place where you were getting sex as a selling point for your school, don't you think Louisville would have been more successful? Biggest surprise this year in college football to me is Sark getting fired. I think anybody who predicted that before the season started would have been crazy that he's only going to last 18 games. Would be a good hire. I don't know if Braum would jump to Memphis. I don't think it's that much of a step up from Western. I think if he leaves Western, he's going to be leaving for a bigger job. But obviously, he's done very well. So far, I think that's true of Butch Jones. Very good recruiter, not that good at developing talent. Because there's a lot of sheep in the Vol fan base that believes that it takes years to turn everything around. Typically not the case. I mean, every team that's won an SEC title, I always like to use this stat, the coach has won at least 9 games by his second season. So for this year, I mean, Butch Jones will be, he went 5-7 his first year, 7-6 his second year. This year, he should go 8-4 with a chance to go 9-4. And, next year people will say that Tennessee should win the SEC East. You got Florida and Alabama both coming to Knoxville. Games you have on the road. Georgia will be tough, but Georgia shouldn't be that much better than Tennessee. They haven't been that much better the past several years. Got South Carolina on the road. South Carolina shouldn't be very good. Tennessee should be, I think, a prohibitive favorite to win the East next year. I think a decent number of Tennessee of coaches would be 6-0 with Tennessee's talent, or at least 5-1. I think you saw that they're every bit as good as Florida, every bit as good as Oklahoma, and I think the team just played really poorly against Arkansas. I think Tennessee's actually quite a bit better than Arkansas. So I think there are quite a few coaches. I'm going to do 10 minutes of this, by the way, so I've got 4 more minutes. I'm just kind of continuing to test this out. I appreciate everybody coming on to ask questions. Good question. There's so many uncertainties about what will happen. I think it's unlikely that if LSU loses to Bama, they'd go to the playoffs. But what if Bama loses another game and LSU would have the tiebreak? Remember, Ole Miss would have the tiebreak over Alabama right now. Nobody's talking about that. Matt Mocktober has been a bust. Really, Matty Mock just has not gotten better throughout his entirety of his career at Missouri, and that's unfortunate. I think Kiffin will get a head coaching job next year. Yes, I think he'll be gone. Coming back at the wrong time. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, I wish he was coming back sooner, but I think it's obviously a really good time in terms of blocking for Ole Miss. I think it'll be tough to go and be full speed against that very strong Texas A&M defensive front when it comes to rushing the passer. But I would think if you are Swag Kelly, you have to be pretty pleased about that. I don't think Kirby will, but I mean, at some point you may get tired of just being the number 2 guy and think you're ready to take on the whole responsibility. And how many years does Saban have left at Alabama? If he's got 5 or 6 years left, which who knows, that's tough. And I don't get the sense that Saban tells Kirby Smart exactly when he's going to be leaving because I don't think he knows. So that's an interesting question in and of itself. And again, I'm going to respond to your questions as they appear, but I'm just testing this out. We do Periscope press conferences pretty regularly. I'll respond to any question that anybody has. This thing, I think, is going to continue to grow. And we've done it once before, had a good feedback. It's the middle of the day, obviously, a lot of people at work, but sometimes that's good. I haven't heard anything else about Will Grier. I think Tennessee's had a lot of injuries, but every team at this point has a lot of injuries. I think Butch Jones tends to play up the things that go wrong with his team. I think that's just what he does. Youth, injuries. He's always quick with an excuse. I think next year there will be no excuses. Butch is going to be back next year, but I think that's going to be the make or break year. He had an opportunity to kind of set himself up this year, win 9 or 10 games, and demonstrate that he's going to be the guy for a long time to come. Now the best case scenario is Tennessee, I think, honestly, goes 8-4. Not a bad season, but not really an incredibly blockbuster season either. I don't see any Heisman candidates on UT's team this year, no. I think the ACC does. High. All Florida has to do in what will basically be a 50-50 game in terms of odds makers is beat Georgia, and they're in. They're not going to lose to South Carolina, and they're not going to lose to Vanderbilt. And if they beat Georgia, it'll be Georgia's 3rd SEC loss. Tennessee probably will have his 3rd SEC loss this week. Florida has the tie break over Missouri and Kentucky already. If they beat Georgia, they can lose another game and still win out. They could lose both games. Basically, if Florida beats Georgia, they win the East. I've got Kentucky plus 11.5 in that game. I think it's probably just a sign of the talent level that surrounds him. It's easier to hand off to Dalvin Cook than it was at Notre Dame, but I think certainly Jimbo Fisher deserves some credit. I also think the quality of competition for Florida State has still not been very high, and Vegas is not that sold on Florida State. They're only a 6-point favorite on the road against Georgia Tech. I don't know on that. It's a tough call on what to expect in that Auburn Arkansas game. I think it's one of the most difficult ones of the season to call so far because neither one of these teams has been reliable. Arkansas is coming off a bye week, but they've lost 4 games, 2 of which were at home, right? And to infinitely lesser foes. And I know Toledo was in Little Rock, but still, go ahead and roll with me there. So I don't feel that optimistic about them. Yeah, I think that Tennessee has a chance. And the puncher's chance is they have to let Dobbs just be Dobbs and play. Just give him a chance. I think that Tennessee, with time to prepare, should be able to be okay against the run. I think you hope that Jacob Coker comes out and plays poorly, and then you hope you get a repeat of what happened for Ole Miss. You win the turnover battle by a substantial margin. I think LSU and Western Kentucky will score a lot of points. The over is my play, as well as I like Western Kentucky plus 17. No, because they play in the Big Ten. Online. All right, going to do a couple more minutes here. I'll answer all your questions. Again, this is kind of me being a test. If you haven't paid attention, people keep asking me what I'm going to do on radio. The answer is we're going to be doing a show like this. We're going to do an hour daily show starting soon that will stream live on Facebook as well as Periscope as well as YouTube. You'll also be able to download a podcast. I think it's the future. We'll have guests. We'll take calls. It will be pretty outstanding. Jalen Hurd is not a top 3 back in the SEC right now, no. I would go with my top 3. I would say that you have to go with Leonard Fournette, number 1. Do you count Nick Chubb? I think it's fair to count him given that he started the season. And then I would go Derrick Henry 3rd. And even if Derrick Henry were not back, I think Alex Collins is every bit at Arkansas as good as Jalen Hurd. Now, I would like to see Jalen Hurd run with, say, the LSU offensive line because I don't think Tennessee's offensive line is blocked very well. And Tennessee doesn't have a dynamic passing threat like some teams do. I don't have a pick on 49ers Seahawks. I do. I'm in the Westgate Superbook contest, so I pick 5 NFL games a week, but I haven't bet on those yet. But I would probably take the Seahawks, honestly, if I was betting. I think they're 6.5-point favorite. I'd probably take them. I don't know if Periscope's had any major content creators sign on yet or not. I don't know how aggressively they push that, but they're about to have us. So that's at least one. And I think, we'll bring thousands of people in a day, which is a decent crowd for a live show. I think a lot of people's kicking games are in trouble. I've made the argument for a long time that Nick Saban shouldn't even attempt field goals. By the way, I'm looking around to see if I can get a water here. Usually I have water beside the bed. I don't see any here right now. Least favorite coaches. My favorite coaches are James Franklin, Kevin Sumlin. See, who do I like, really enjoy watching? Kingsbury. Guys that are pretty entertaining, but also don't take themselves very seriously. I would love to see that appeal. I think there's a decent chance that he gets a reduced suspension and serves out the rest of this year, but that's my take. I wrote a big column about Spurrier bailing on SC. I thought it was kind of a very Spurrier move, but I don't particularly view it as a negative. I think it's basically what Spurrier's like. What about immediate impact? It depends on where Treadwell goes. Wide receivers are obviously having more substantial impacts quickly in the NFL game. I think that's a testament to the complexity of the offenses that are being run at the college level and also just the skill set that guys bring to the NFL by the time they get there. I hope so. I hope Nashville gets some of those soccer games. Ever? I would bet no on Butch Jones getting Tennessee to the playoff. I haven't talked to Fulmer in a while, but we every now and then will text. Haven't in a while, but I'll see him every now and then. He's a good guy, Phil Fulmer is. I don't know about Jalen Hurd. He's still young. He's a true sophomore. He's been, I think, fantastic in really big games. He's a beast. I don't know still about his upright running style. That would seem to be a lot of big hits in the NFL. I think there's a lot of positions he could play, but I'm not 100% sure. No, I don't think Nashville will get an NBA team, unfortunately. They wanted to put the Grizz here, but the Preds blocked it. I wish we didn't have an NHL hockey team in Nashville because I would much rather have an NBA team. The Outkick show will be broadcast in this format in the context of it'll show up on your Facebook feeds and you can click on it and watch it. But it'll be different in that, I mean, I won't just be sitting in a hotel room leaning back against the headboard. We'll have an actual set. I'll have guests. I'll be able to take calls. But it's the same format in that you can watch it just like you're watching this. I would sit out next year if I was Fournette. Greer, I think, is Florida's best long-term option. All right, guys, I just wanted to test this out. I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody coming to hang out. Appreciate the hair feedback. But if you are just now trying this thing out, I will be doing this a lot. When our new show debuts, it'll be on, in fact, every weekday, and also after big television events and everything else, you'll be able to watch it. So I appreciate everybody checking out. Answer the question, I spend a lot of time in LA, probably 3 days a week during the football season on average, sometimes 4. I'll be on television tonight on FS1, and then our show will air tomorrow. I like A&M tonight, or A&M on Saturday against Ole Miss +6, and I also like the over in that game. Beard, I think the beard's okay. I mean, I've got to trim up tonight before I do TV, but I try to trim my facial hair right before I go on TV. So I will do it tonight before I head over for meetings. So appreciate everybody hanging out, and I will see you.